We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton alongside Jerem Jordan. Joining us now, our longtime friend, BYU TV Sports. He's a former NFL and BYU linebacker.
Really?
His name is David Nixon, and he has plenty to say about Tennessee leaving the 2023 schedule, and now BYU replaces the Volunteers with who? David, who's your go-to team, brother, now that Tennessee's not coming to Provo?
I'll just say who it isn't, and that's Bama. You don't want Bama. You don't want any of that smoke. Listen, with BYU and now going to the Big 12 that year, there's no reason you beef up your non-conference schedule. I mean, this isn't like basketball where you have to worry about strength of schedule. As a BYU fan, we're not going to make the playoffs, especially that first year in the Big 12. So you don't need to worry about trying to vie for those top four spots and have a strong strength of schedule. So go out there and get in UNLV or a very winnable game, something probably here regionally. And slip it in there and get ready for Big 12. I mean, there's no reason to go out there and try to stretch yourself and get guys injured when you're going to be playing in your first year of what you've been dreaming for over a decade. So I think you find a team that's a very winnable game. Obviously, get them to come here to the LES. There's talks of maybe meeting Northwestern and Vegas. I don't want another Vegas game. I mean, BYU's playing there this year with Notre Dame, but BYU needs a home game, especially with, like I said, the schedule coming up. So I say get a winnable game. Do not take Bama. Do not take anybody that resembles Bama. Not a lot of teams that do. But get ready for the Big 12 gauntlet. That's what you're really eyeing for.
Yeah, we're with you. And finally, everyone's on my fewer P5s train. Because we're going to have plenty in the Big 12. We're going to have 9 plus 1 a year. 10 is great. So you talked about a winnable game. We were talking about some of those options that Spencer researched. I don't want Memphis. I don't want Louisiana, frankly. That's a really good team out of the Sun Belt who's been in the top 25. It'd be fine if it's Southern Miss or James Madison, a newly minted G5 this year who's been FCS awesome. Middle Tennessee, a little history there. We played a 13-14 series there. FIU, fine. UNLV is probably the most intriguing. Who's the most intriguing for you among those potential G5s? Or would you want a Memphis, a Louisiana?
You know, I will say, like Louisiana school, having grown up in Texas and those teams in the South, a lot of those kids are kids that have been passed up on by your Alabamas, Auburns, and a lot of them have chips on their shoulders. So those are the type of kids you don't want to play, especially when you're looking for just kind of a gimme game once again. So I like the UNLV game. Bring back the old Mountain West days when we used to play them year in and year out. You know, and I don't know, maybe it's fun to bring FIU or one of those guys across the country, but for me, it's one of those games you don't have to think too hard about. Once again, you got to keep your eye on the prize, and that is getting healthy to Big 12 play and being ready to rock and roll and not slipping up beforehand. Because here's the thing, Bill, you're going to be familiar with UNLV. I mean, I know you have been playing each other in a conference, but you got similar type kids you've recruited, and so it's something that you're familiar with. Whereas in these other schools, they come out here with some crazy offense and something that you're not really prepared for, and next thing you know, you're struggling in a game you shouldn't have to struggle in.
Now, David, to me, it has to be a BYU home game because Tennessee was going to be playing in Provo. And BYU, we don't know what's going to happen with the Big 12 schedule. So to me, it absolutely has to be a home game, not a neutral field, certainly not a road game. Are you on board with me that the Cougars have to have a home game?
Totally agree. Totally agree. Once again, because of the year that's going to be happening with BYU, a whole bunch of firsts, right? You're traveling to first time to Lawrence or, down to Texas Tech or whatever, however the schedule comes out. There's going to be a lot of stuff up in the air, a lot of anticipation. And so for me, once again, I really couldn't care less about that preseason, those first 3 games. I think this is something that you're really just focused on your team and getting ready for the Big 12. And so for me, whenever Tennessee bailed, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, frankly. I wasn't too sad because once again, it's an SEC opponent. You don't want to get beat up. I mean, this is our first time to make a big splash in the Big 12 and try to make a run. It kind of sets the tone for maybe the rest of your time in that conference. And so for me, Arkansas is obviously a huge splash. That's going to be a really tough game. You got Southern Utah, and then once again, the game we're talking about now where you get maybe UNLV. So I think that's probably the most plausible type situation. Get UNLV locally, get them here. I agree. Do not do a neutral field. You want to have them here. And then see how that Big 12 schedule rolls out.
David, I love you, but I got to counter something you said. I think those first couple of games really matter. I think BYU needs to go 2-3 2-1 in those games to ensure a bowl because we don't know how BYU is going to fare in that Big 12 schedule, that gauntlet that we've never really gone through. Don't tell me you don't go back to 06 and 07 and think if we didn't go 1-2 to start those seasons, we wouldn't have been in a BCS game. They certainly matter, but in the big picture, I get it. You got to get ready for Big 12 play, no doubt. But I think BYU needs to win 2 of those 3 to ensure, yes, we're going to a bowl game, even if we go 4-5 in league.
Yeah, and when I say don't care, I think a lot of it depends on if you want to get to the New Year's Six game.
In year one next year?
I'm just saying it gives you the platform, right? So that's always been BYU's goal. Get into a conference and make it to a New Year's Six game, right? I mean, that's the top goals that Kalani has outlined. And so if you want to get there, you have the platform now. Whereas in prior in independence, you had to basically run the table. As we saw this last year, you couldn't afford slip-ups. And so for me, it's if you can go have an impressive season in the Big 12, you're going to have that shot at the New Year's Six game. Prior, that's why I don't think you needed Tennessee to be able to puff your schedule up, because you already had that schedule puffed up during the Big 12. I mean, it's already got its strength of schedule there. So that's why, for me, losing the Tennessee game is not a huge deal, because all of a sudden you fill it with UNLV. I get it. Tennessee's much more fun and much more intriguing than UNLV is. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is focus on that Big 12 play and winning that first-time Big 12 championship. And, hey, I know it's a lofty goal, but that's got to be your goal year in and year out. You can't settle for anything less. You're not trying to say preseason. Kalani isn't preaching to his team, guys, get ready for 2023 to take third. We can do it. We can reach third place. That's not it. As competitors, you're not eyeing for third or second place. And so, yeah, is it a lofty goal? Yeah, it's a lofty goal. But, hey, that's where it's at. You got to eye it to go out there and take the whole thing year one.
Well said.
Third would be amazing in year one. I feel you on those goals, no doubt. And for the team rhetoric, sure. But let's be real. In year one, it's make a bowl game for BYU because of they're going into a place they've never actually gone before, right? If BYU makes a bowl game, I'm like, check. Now we move from here. Because to me, the goal hasn't necessarily been New Year's Six for BYU football. It's been to get into a Power 5. Now that BYU is getting into one, now we can look around and go, okay, how do we sit here? Also, Oklahoma and Texas are still in the league. So once they leave, there'll be this big reset where we look around and go, okay, now how do we fare in year 3? We've had a couple of years. Oklahoma's gone. They're the best team here. Texas obviously is always overrated, but still quality. Then I think we'll go, okay, now how do we fare? So how do you sort of see that navigation the first couple of years in the Big 12? Or is it like you said, no, let's go compete right away, realistically, for a Big 12 title?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with Oklahoma and Texas obviously still being a part of the conference and how that's all going to shake out. But I think, like I said earlier, I think this year one is how you set the tone. And I think this is a team that's got to come out swinging. I think BYU has a great chance. I mean, you look at last year, the measuring stick for BYU was playing at Baylor. They kept it close in that first half. Second half, they got worn down, and that was in the trenches. It's something BYU's got to improve on. But Baylor goes on to win the Big 12 championship, and they were the marquee school of that conference. And so for me, BYU's, I think they can hang with the Texas Techs, the Houstons of the world. When you bring in Cincinnati, I think all these teams, BYU has a really good shot against them. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as tough as maybe you might think it is. I think Oklahoma, with losing their coach, and we'll see how they rebuild. Texas, as you mentioned, hasn't been great. So I don't know. I think I'm more optimistic about heading into the Big 12 than maybe most are. That I think BYU has some success, especially coming up this year with Jaron Hall and what they can produce. You continue to get some good recruits in here and build around them. And I don't know. I think BYU can go in there and surprise people that first year in the Big 12, no doubt.
It wouldn't hurt to have Jaron Hall playing quarterback the first year in 2023 in the Big 12, but that's probably not going to happen.
Ben 22 needs to be mediocre.
All right, David. So
we just need to start pitching in for NIL money for Jaron now. That's what we need to do. We all need to invent some companies and just pay him like $10 million for that first year. And we're good. It's not easy.
David Nixon is on BYU Sports Nation. Enough 2023 talk. Let's discuss the 2022 squad. And is it more about Jaron Hall and the offense for BYU to be successful and win double-digit games again? Or, David, is it about the reemergence of a defense that was certainly banged up with injuries last year and, by the numbers, were not great? And BYU was number 78 in total defense last year, according to Bill Connolly of ESPN. So is 2022's success more about BYU's defense being better than anything else?
I think it is. I think offensively, there's not going to be any worries. I don't think BYU, frankly, misses a beat even when you miss Algier. A draft pick leaves the team. I think this team, offensively, I think they'll pick up right where they left off. For me, the big worry is, frankly, the defense. And I'll be honest, I addressed this right when the season ended. I felt like BYU needed to address the defensive line and linebackers, bring in some transfers, and maybe some JUCO guys. Unfortunately, they did not do that in this offseason. Obviously, Kalani and his staff know better than I and are confident with the guys they have in those rooms. But I would love to have seen some more depth come in the front door in that sense. But you look at the lineup, there's a lot of guys who played quality reps last year, played against good opponents, faced some adversity as far as injuries go. Guys had to step up, probably play more than they wanted to or felt like playing, that maybe their bodies weren't ready to play. And so you take all that into consideration. One more year underneath their belt. Hopefully this defense can step up. And my focus this year, I think the secondary will be great. It's that BYU front seven. And yes, injuries did BYU pretty bad, especially in the linebacker area, D-line as well. But they've got to find a way to beef up that front seven because, the teams BYU is facing, Arkansas, Oregon, I mean, these guys are going to want to run it. They're going to look at the film from last year, what Baylor did, and they're going to try to run it down your throat. And you got to find a way to step up, plug holes, and come to the football and make tackles. And that's something BYU really struggle with. But other than that, I think this team, I think they're set up for success. And assuming that all the guys come back healthy and ready to play, it's a really exciting squad.
Yeah, hopefully a healthy Keenan Peely and a healthy Peyton Wilgar and a healthy Max Tooley will join Ben Byward, and those linebackers can fill some of those gaps on the defensive line. David, great stuff. Always fun to talk with you. Let's do it again soon.
Awesome. We'll do. Take care, guys.
David Nixon on BYU Sports Nation.